Craving a drumstick ice cream cone, but you really want cake? I got you. Enjoy the iconic flavor of salted caramel, chocolate ganache, peanuts, and waffle cone in one tasty layer cake. Start by making the vanilla cake layers. For that I use a big mixing bowl and add softened butter. Add vegetable oil or canola oil, whatever you prefer. White granulated sugar for stability and sweetness, and a big splash of vanilla extract. Don't forget to add some salt if you're using unsalted butter. If you like to use salted butter, you do not need to add extra salt. And then cream it with a hand mixer until it is lighter in color and super fluffy. This takes about 4 to 5 minutes at a medium speed. Do not skimp on that, it is really important. When it is all whipped up nicely, mix in eggs one by one to avoid curdling of the batter. Mix it for about a minute. Then fold in the dry ingredients. I recommend to combine them before in a separate bowl and sift them to make sure there is no lumps. So mix in all-purpose flour that has been sifted and spooned for a correct measuring. The leavening agents baking powder and baking soda. I like to use both as I find it makes the cake layers rise more evenly. Let's start mixing it on a low speed of the hand mixer to avoid flour flying everywhere. Add in flour little by little and make sure it is mixed in before adding more. You can take your time. And when it is all mixed in, add the room temperature whole milk at last and mix it until smooth on a low speed. Or you can use a spatula or whisk to fold it in. Make sure not to overmix the batter, or it will lead to a dense cake and all the effort was for nothing. When the batter looks smooth like this, set it aside and bring in your baking pans. I like to use Fat Dadio's 8-inch size cake pans to bake the cake. Grease each cake pan thoroughly with baking oil or butter on the bottom and the sides to make sure the cake releases easily after baking. Line it with parchment paper rounds on the bottom, which also helps prevent the cake sticking to the cake pan. Just snug it in there tightly. Divide the batter between 2 baking pans, and if you want to, you can use bake-even stripes to ensure flat cake tops. You can read all about it in the description. Then bake the cake layers at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 40 minutes. Make sure to test their doneness with a wooden skewer. While the cake layers are cooling, prepare the vanilla frosting. For that I'm using softened butter, and just like for the cake batter, I like it to be a bit softer than room temperature. Combine it with vegetable shortening and mix it until fluffy and lighter in color for about 5 to 10 minutes at medium speed. I found that the shortening tends to turn out a bit lumpy, so I prefer to mix it in a separate bowl first, and when it is fluffy, I add it to the whipped butter and mix it together. You do not need to use shortening at all, but it will make your buttercream so much whiter and have less buttery flavor than with just butter alone. When it is all whipped up, add some powdered sugar in small portions and make sure it is mixing completely before adding more. It is easier if you're using a tall mixing bowl, so the powdered sugar does not explode like it happened to me. Scrape down the bowl if needed to ensure an even mixing. And then just keep adding all the 8 cups of powdered sugar to get a thick and smooth buttercream that does not have a greasy buttery flavor. For that it is important to whip the butter long enough in the first step and then to add enough powdered sugar. If it is too sweet for your taste, you can either add some salt or swap some sugar with instant pudding mixed with some milk instead. When it is mixing completely, add vanilla extract for rich flavor. I make my own vanilla extract because I'm running through so much of it. Let me know if you want my recipe. And whole milk to make it smoother. Whip it for a few minutes on high speed to get a fluffy consistency. You can see how smooth and thick the frosting is. That is perfect, so let's decorate the cake. For that, cut each cake layer one time horizontally, either into the same thickness or into a thicker and a thinner layer like I did. to get 4 cake layers. Then top the first cake layer with a bit of buttercream and smooth it out with an offset spatula. Let's pipe a border around it to keep the caramel filling from oozing out of the cake. I like to use a 12-inch pastry bag with a big round tip to make piping easier. Add about 1/3 cup of caramel filling. I like to use store-bought salted caramel sauce on a sweetened condensed milk base. I find it has a great flavor and always is the perfect consistency. And then smooth it out all the way to the border. Then top it with a second cake layer. You see how it's only half the size of the other cake layer? That is what I meant earlier. Now just pipe a border of buttercream around the edge of the cake and fill it up with a thicker chocolate ganache that has sat a bit in the fridge. If you want more filling, just double the recipe and maybe pipe a taller border if needed. Smooth it out all the way to the edge. You want to work quite quickly to avoid the ganache to set while spreading it out. Also, you can add some crushed waffle cone and chopped peanuts on top of the ganache for an extra crunch. Then place the third cake layer on top and cover it with more frosting. It is going to be another salted caramel layer, so spread out the frosting in an even, thin layer. It is easier if you have a cake decoration turntable. Then let's pipe a buttercream border around the cake, just a thin border is enough, and add salted caramel sauce. If you prefer to make your own salted caramel, I will link a recipe for that in the instructions. It is easier if you warm the caramel before using it, so it gets softer and easier spreadable. Then let's spread out the filling all the way to the border. When it is all smooth, cover it with the last cake layer, then it is time to cover the whole cake with frosting. Read in the written recipe how to frost a cake with a crumb coat and outer coat for perfectly smooth sides. Let me know if you're interested to see me decorating a cake more in depth. After refrigerating, it gets coated with a thick layer of frosting and then just scrape it with a metal cake scrape for straight and smooth edges. When the cake is chilled for about 40 minutes, decorate it with a chocolate ganache drip. I like to test the drip first on one side of the cake, and if the consistency is right, I keep piping the drip all around the cake. It is easier if you're using a turntable, so you can turn the cake while piping the drip, and you can always see what you're doing. Then fill up the whole cake top with leftover chocolate ganache and spread it out. You want to work quite quickly, so that the ganache does not set before you cover the whole surface. And just help the ganache flow to the edge. Be careful not to let it drip over the sides, or you might mess up the drip. Don't worry, it does not have to look perfect, as you're going to cover it with crushed up waffle cone pieces and chopped peanuts. Just sprinkle them all over the cake, all the way to the edge. Decorated waffle cones add a final touch to the decoration. For that, just dip them in chocolate ganache and sprinkle some chopped peanuts all over it. Freeze them for a few minutes to make them set quicker. And that's it. Your support means the world to me, so do not forget to hit like and subscribe to not miss out on any videos. And as always, leave a comment down below if you have any questions. Thank you so much. The full recipe is linked in the description. I always love to see the first cake slice with all the layers, especially when there's caramel involved. You see how it oozes out? Who can say no to that? I hope you like this recipe just as much as I do. Happy baking, bye!